See, I've been waiting. Waiting on that time. Feel me if you've been waiting on yours. That moment, it's close. It's close. It's close.
Yeah.
Tired of living day to day like everything.
Recording live from an undisclosed location. My name is Joe Gilpin, joined as always by my co-host, Mr. Jesse Rivas. How you doing this week, Jesse?
I'm doing great. I just I saw cows on the way here.
Yeah, you had to drive way
haystacks.
fucking out here. We are recording in Poolesville, Maryland today. We are not with DJ Marcus in the Dot Comedy Studios, unfortunately, but we still want to give you guys the audio entertainment. We got to give you guys the oral stimulation that everybody needs on this Valentine's week. We're actually recording on Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day,
Happy
Mr. Jesse
Valentine's
Rivas.
Day to you too.
Thank you very much.
You know what's crazy is that I drove so many hours north just to feel like I'm in the South. It's crazy.
It's crazy in here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Poolesville is a nice place full of neo-Nazis, turns out. I grew up here, and some nationally known neo-Nazis are from here. I've talked about them on the show before, I believe. And I remember being a little kid being I think these kids over here are kind of super evil. And my teachers would be like, Joe, that is not nice. And I grew up and these kids are like, I just think we need to behead all the Jews and then see what happens.
You know what's crazy?
Maybe our drinking water won't get poisoned anymore.
Do you remember how Michael Hayes and the dudes
Michael
from
P.S. Hayes?
Yeah, Michael P.S. Hayes and the dudes from the Dukes of Hazzard had the Confederate flag on their car, and I always thought they were cool. Well, when I came
Not
here,
the case.
I've seen that, and I was like, well, I don't think these people are that cool.
Because they're not as charming as Michael P.S. Hayes. You can say so
Who
much
has
stuff.
said the N-word to Mark Henry, apparently?
Yeah, so didn't Vince McMahon on live TV say the N-word?
Yes.
Yes, he 100% did, and we just don't talk about it.
He called John Cena.
He called John Cena the M-word, and
Yeah.
Booker T was staring at him. It was crazy. We had actual fighting this weekend. We don't have to talk about fake fighting. We can talk about real fighting because we had the fake retirement fight for Roy Jones Jr. Isn't
Yes.
this exciting? He's the Terry Funk of boxing.
Yes.
He's going to have 12 retirement fights. He won a well-organized, unanimous decision over his opponent, whose name I forget, because I'm a journalist in America.
Well, he wasn't a relevant fighter.
He wasn't relevant at all. It was just it may as well have been an character you haven't unlocked on a game yet. You know what I mean? Just the most basic attributes you could give someone. And Roy, did well, showed, a shadow of his former self, and picked up the unanimous decision win. Do you think it's his last fight? No. Are you a fool?
No.
It's not going to be his last fight. It's not. Until he's going to have to get laid out on the canvas 8 times in a row before he finally gives it up. You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
And even then, he probably won't.
If you started... All right, so if you were born during the decline of Roy Jones Jr., you're old enough to be a professional fighter.
I know. You could be pro having only seen washed Roy Jones Jr. A guy who's been fighting longer than I've been alive. Quite legitimately, in a contact sport. This is a crazy guy.
To be fair, not a lot of contact was made on him for the first
That's accurate.
15 years.
That's
but-
a good point. People talk about, he's been in for 30 years. Well, he's only been shitty for 10 of them.
Yeah.
He's going to be okay. So that was really the only big boxing going on over the weekend. There was a little bit of boxing I feel like was taking a breath, recovering for this upcoming weekend, sitting on the stool. But we did have some great fighting action that I was loving to see, and that was middleweight interim half title fight.
It was
Title fight
amazing.
on a half shell.
I was a big fan on a half shell. Is it because Yoel looks like a Ninja Turtle?
Also because of that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's a damn good reference.
Thank you.
But no, I thought it was a great fight. I was a little bit...
It was a wonderful fight. Let's talk about the fight
Yeah.
before
Yeah,
we talk
yeah.
about the controversy, because there is controversy, well-earned controversy. So Luke Rockhold is pecking away. He's, throwing a nice teep kick. He's controlling everything really well. And then Yoel Romero comes on, and he explodes, and he hits him with an overhand and puts him out. And then fucking scrambled his brain with his uppercut. Did you like the one extra punch that they had to let go?
I get why the referee made the decision.
Are people going to fucking jump down this person's throat like they did with Mario?
And the reason
No.
is because if it was any other fighter on the planet,
They would have said stop the
They
fight.
would
Yeah.
they would have kept it going. They would have been like, okay, let's see where this goes. But it's Yoel Romero. When Yoel leaps at you, it's a whole different type of punch.
Don't you wish there was a simulation you could go into to just experience that moment? That
Yes.
fear you must feel, how alive you must feel. It's like at the zoo at one point, I think it was the Cincinnati Zoo, a tiger leapt out and ate a guy. I would love to just know what you feel in that moment. I feel like it's the same thing with this. Like seeing Yoel Romero while you're sitting on your ass leaping at you with a Roman Reigns Superman punch. You're gonna die. And there's no way around it.
What I think it's hilarious is the fact that like Yoel Romero, he's so religious that as soon as he landed the punch and Rockhold got up, he immediately picked him up, started kissing him on the cheek, started saying, "I love you,
Yo,
Papi.
what
Papi,
was
I love
that?
you. You know I love you. I love you." Mwah. And I was like,
Back up.
he doesn't want to hear this right now.
Hey man, first of all, you blew out both his eardrums with that punch. Second of all, step the fuck off. You just got into a fist fight with this guy. You don't need to be sitting here sucking each other's dicks. If you wanted to do that, you could have made weight. That would have been a great present to him. Actually, it was a great present to miss weight because Luke Rockhold's going to make even more money off of that. He doesn't get the winner's purse, but he's getting some of Yoel's purse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
And he could have gotten some of that coin purse if you wanted to.
I was a little blown away by the fact that Yoel Romero had trouble with the jab, given that his brother is a multi-time world champion boxer who uses the jab very well. Did they never get in fights as a kid?
Apparently not. No, he got jabbed in the face and just immediately went spammed a double leg. It was perfect. The Romero household was fucking everybody up. Something I want to point out that I noticed that Luke Rockhold has had problems with technically, he has problems backing up. Luke Rockhold has a lot of problems backing up. It fucked him against Bisping. It caught him here. He got caught with it against Weidman, but he didn't get put out. He has problems backing up with his defense, and he backs up in a straight line with his lead hand down. And that's where people keep slipping in these overhands that put him on his ass from time to time. He's got to clean that up in his game. You can't expect to be the number one guy in the world and have that big a technical error in your game. I noticed it watching, and I went back and I watched tape, and it is there.
Is he usually the tallest person in his
Yes.
gym? And I think that's
At AKA, he's what, 6'2", 6'3",
Yeah.
I think, something like that. I mean, Kane's a short guy. Daniel Cormier's a short guy. Who's he training with that's
I think
super
that's a
tall
guy move, but if you're not that, if you don't
It's an
have that
Ali move, right? It's the shoulder, you throw the shoulder and you lean.
It's a tall guy move. But the thing is, if you're not significantly taller than the guy in the fight, then it's going to be getting taken advantage of during the fight.
Well, you like the height because you like the distance
Yes.
that gives you. But when you're Yoel Romero and you can close the distance like that, it's completely different. You know what I mean? That height means so much less, and the reach means so much less.
Who was more athletic?
No one. I don't
Kevin
think there's
Randleman?
anyone. No.
In his prime?
No.
With roids?
No. Because Kevin Randleman tried to wrestle at the Olympic level. He couldn't do what Yoel
True.
Romero did. He didn't do. He was a very good freestyle wrestler, amazing collegiate wrestler, but he was not Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero would dominate Kevin Randleman, at least in terms of when you stack up their credentials. It's not even in the same ballpark who's better. It's not a conversation. Let's look at Yoel Romero's resume, because it's gotten sneakily to be one of the best of all time. Chris Weidman, by stoppage. By the way, almost all of these are by stoppage. Luke Rockhold, by stoppage. Lyoto Machida, stoppage. All of these brutal knockouts. Jacare, close split decision, but he did win that fight. That was that fight where it felt like it should be like a 27-27 draw. You know what I mean? Like nobody should have ever won a round. Derek Brunson, flying knee knockout, broke his jaw. Tim Kennedy, super controversial, but still, there's a little bit of an asterisk, but he still won the fight by knockout. This is this guy's resume. Nobody can match this. Not even the champion can match this.
But
the champion did beat him.
He did beat him, yeah.
He did beat him straight up. But I'm saying when you stack up
it's kind of like
win.
Highlander. It's like he ate all those wins
Yeah,
with
he
the
gets
victory
all
over
of those.
Romero.
Those are his sub-wins, his grand wins. So let's talk about the champion. Because the champion right now, the UFC, I kind of feel like got the worst case scenario in all of this.
Yes.
Because now they have a rematch, but maybe they don't because Yoel Romero misses weight by 3 pounds. In fact, he weighs in at like 177.8, and they say, okay, you have a couple hours to cut weight. You got to come in 185. It's a title fight. We won't even allow you at 186. Says, okay, bet. He comes back a little heavier, which felt like an issue. You had 3 hours here, and I think he just completely punted and said, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But didn't want to let anybody know, which is a very old Cuban trick, to just decide something but not tell anybody. You know what I mean? In that way. So when I say Cuban trick, Cuban wrestling. Like, they're known for certain kind of... Like, when he pulled the stool gate thing, that's an old Cuban wrestling trick. He's been doing that since he was 16 years old. You know what I mean?
Explain the stool gate.
The stool gate is when he's fighting Tim Kennedy. You have 1 minute between rounds where your corner can operate on you. You can rest. You can talk strategy, recover. And he ended up taking like 2.5 minutes, and he just wasn't standing up. He's just not coming out. It's an old Angelo Dundee trick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been happening forever. He didn't make it up. It's Angelo Dundee, cut the gloves. And he ends up taking all his time. He recovers a lot against Tim Kennedy, comes out for the third round much fresher, puts together a really solid explosive combination, gets Tim Kennedy out of the fight. So him sitting on the stool for that long and recovering that long was the controversy. It should have been a TKO, technically.
Yeah.
Yeah, the referee should have called the fight, Big John McCarthy. Worst case scenario for the UFC, because they're kind of stuck in this, we have a number one contender, but he already fought the champion, and he missed weight, so we don't want to plug him into a title fight, but who the fuck else can we give a title fight to? So the whole division, I feel like, is...
That's such a John Fitch situation. You've been dominated so well by the champion, but you could beat everybody else, so you're just stuck in limbo.
But it really is. The division's been dominated by the number one contender, but the number one contender lost to the champion already.
You know what's funny?
There's so many fights for Whittaker. Whittaker has half a dozen fights, but nobody has just the right amount of momentum to face the champion except for the worst guy.
Yeah, you know what? It's weird how that is something that we have now. Because back in the day, if you look at the golden age of boxing, you would just have people fight each other like 30 times. If that was the number one contender and he made his way back up, you fought him again.
Yeah, tough shit. You're getting paid. And I feel like that was the golden age because it was before everything got political.
Yeah.
And before everything was just ratings. There was still a little bit of sportsmanship to it. Maybe a little bit of a hot take. I'm actually not that mad at Yoel for missing weight. I listened to a podcast earlier today. I think it was the Chael Sonnen one. Guy went on like a 20-minute thing about he missed weight, and in amateur wrestling, we never missed weight. It's like, okay, but we weren't fighting for world championships and, money. Here, Yoel had 1 month to prepare. I think they knew he wasn't going to come in on weight. Nobody seems that mad about it. Dana White put out a statement like, we really appreciate Yoel Romero taking this fight. So I think they even talked to him, and they knew that he wasn't going to come in 100% correct.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's supposed to be Whittaker.
It was supposed to be Whittaker. Yoel was very short notice to this.
This whole card didn't make any sense. But if you put Whittaker at the top, you're like, oh,
it falls in, right? It's Australia versus the world. But for some reason, no, it's just a weird middleweight title fight.
There was even a point when I was like, oh, they put him there because he's from New Zealand. That's where oh, no, wait, that's Lombard. That's Hector Lombard. It's a different Cuban guy.
That's Alex Garcia. Wait, shit. So I feel like the UFC is still going to try to plug in Whittaker to the title fight, or Whittaker and Romero to the title fight.
Yeah, doesn't it feel like that now?
I feel like there's just nobody else when you look up and down that division. Jacare isn't quite there. Chris Weidman isn't quite there.
That's got to be an undercard, man. That cannot be a main card.
It's going to need something else, right? We're going to need, The main event is going to be John Jones fucking a hooker. The co-main event is going to be a title fight between Whittaker and Romero.
Kind of like, I don't know if you saw the advertisements for the next UFC where they have Cyborg in the main event. They almost apologize to you.
It's literally just like, would you like to see someone get murdered? Hey, you kids want to see a dead body? That should be all of the ads.
The way they sold it to us, when they had those little ads in between fights, they say, in the next UFC, we got Cyborg. Don't even say the name of our opponent. And they're like, and by the way, Frankie Edgar is going to be fighting
Brian Ortega
on the undercard. Just to let you know, there's still going to be fights.
I can't wait for that. But yeah, they literally, for like the fight commercial for that, they should just redo the commercial for the movie It, where like Cyborg pops up like a little clown, like, hey, you'll float down here. Come on down here, and she just rips her soul out.
That actually would sell tickets.
I'd say they do it. I'm not kidding. Let's get outside the box. Speaking of outside the box, we have a new heavyweight contender. We have a new heavyweight to be excited about, Mr. Jesse Rivas. Are you excited?
No, that was very boring.
Yeah, it was the best case scenario for the UFC because Mark Hunt lost, and they are not in the Mark Hunt business right now.
He almost won in that first round.
I know, he really almost put him out. I think he gassed his arms a little bit in the second round. I think he took the second round off, and I think by the time they got to the third round, he didn't have enough to like kick back up. You know what I mean?
Blades, can you put a little bit of like
flash,
jazz or flash to your look, to your speech, to anything? Just give us something.
See, but this guy has staying power, and he has the skill set that I think you're going to need in this heavyweight division to be able to go long term. He's 4-1-1 in the UFC. He ground out a 3-round decision over a contender like Mark Hunt. His only loss is to Francis Ngannou, where he went 10 minutes with a murderer before the doctor stopped it. JUCO wrestling champion, a la John Jones, a la Daniel Cormier. This guy has a lot of pluses, and it's a new heavyweight. I don't give a shit how he's winning. I want a new heavyweight to talk about.
You know what? I'm actually more excited about the heavyweight they fought the fight before.
Tyvuza or whatever his name was. Oh man, he
beat the hell out of Will Ferrell like that. That Will Ferrell.
I was calling him Jonah Hill. Cyril Asker, a very, very tough fighter. But yeah, he beat the hell out of him.
Okay, sometimes, that happens. That happens. I remember when I first saw Cub Swanson, I thought Cub Swanson sucked because I'd only seen him against Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
So sometimes that happens, but just his appearance, the way he looked and he came out there.
Very Hobbit-like.
Yes.
Very Middle-earth.
I was like, where did they bring this guy out of? Like, it looked like they took the IT guy and then they put a Russian name on him and like, go out there and be somebody. Be the next Fedor.
That used to happen in like WEC. They would be like, this guy's the janitor here at this arena. It was like, you don't need to be telling me this.
Do you know that happened one time where they asked an audience member to come in and fight, and the dude was banging the same girl as one of the fighters. So he fought him and knocked him out.
Oh, what? Yeah, but the guy had been like doing like on the side, like it was in Brazil, right?
No, it was in America.
Oh, was it? I heard about one in Brazil where the guy had been doing Muay Thai and he was a purple belt, and he went in and he actually had some skill that they didn't expect. They just pretty much put out like, hey, if anybody here is 170 pounds and would like to fight tonight, we really would appreciate it.
It was something similar, but what happened?
Why are you doing that? If you're a promoter, if I was sitting at a show and they put out an announcement like this, I'd be like, this is some bullshit.
That's
Give
how
me
Matt
my
Brown
money
started
back.
fighting. Did you know that? The immortal Matt Brown?
I thought he started fighting when he got brought back from the dead and he made a deal with the devil.
No, his boy was supposed
That's
to,
how I'd promote him.
He went to a show to go watch his friend fight. And then they said, do you want to fight? It's only $30. And he's like, what? It's only $30 for me to fight somebody? He's like, yeah. He's like, he had been doing coke all day. He had been drinking because he thought that he was going to see his friend fight. So then he was like, yeah.
That's probably why he fought. If I got coked up and drunk and somebody offered me, a $30 fight, I'd be like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, let's do it.
He agreed, and he fought the champion of the promotion and won in his first fight. And he was like, all right, I'm going to make it a career.
Yeah, there you go. And it has fucking worked out for him. He's fighting Carlos Condit coming up.
He talked about it on the Joe Rogan podcast, and I was like, wow, it really was the Wild West back then.
It was, I mean, that's still, you can still find places like that. It's not like we are that far from that. Do you have anything else from the weekend that was? Anything else that we have left to recap?
No,
I guess
that's
what I'm asking. Okay, moving along, we have some fights to preview. I don't think we have that much in the news to talk about.
Let me set the stage for our signature fight that we have this week.
It's exciting.
We have a very exciting, like you're going to hear me say always, from the World Boxing Super Series, which is
I thought you were talking about the Benavidez-Gavril fight. I thought that's the crown jewel of the weekend to me.
World Boxing Super Series, the $50 million tournament that's a huge deal everywhere but the U.S. You're going to hear me complain about that all the time. They better have some American.
We talk about that like how my lefty friends talk about like socialized medicine.
Yes.
Like the rest of the world has it, and it's amazing, and they all love it, but we can't get in here for some reason. It's the same argument.
Yeah. This is the Rock and Stone Cold of England.
We should do you remember before WrestleMania 17 that Limp Bizkit
Yes.
video package? We should do one for this fight to like break stuff or whatever.
Follow me here. Look at personality types, right? You have the white guy who comes from like the tough, like poor neighborhood, but he's like a badass. He'll punch you in the face. He loves football. In this case, we're talking about original football.
Yeah.
And
football that actually uses your feet.
Yeah, and he's a badass, and he's overcome all the odds. Versus the multi-generational, great speaker, grew up rich, biracial kid.
You mean Rocky versus Creed, right? It's unbelievable.
Yo, we're literally talking about the Rock and Stone Cold. This is crazy.
No, man, you're so correct. It is so Rock versus Stone Cold. Oh, dude, this is going to be so incredible. It's Manu Arena, I believe, over in the UK for the IBO and WBA title. We have George Groves versus Chris Eubank Jr. Could you be more excited for this fight?
This is great.
This is one of the biggest fights of the year, in my opinion. I can't wait.
Yeah, for people who don't know who George Groves is, George St. Groves captivated the audience in the UK when he was only 5 fights in. He was one of the top
He beat the
prospects.
shit out of Vince McMahon. It was dope. Have you ever seen that clip of the first time? Maybe I've talked about it on the podcast before, but the first time Stone Cold Steve Austin beat up his boss in the WWF, the crowd went fucking apeshit. People just started like turning around and overturning tables and chairs around them. Chaos is reigning. People are beating up their bosses. Like they didn't know it was fake yet. They thought he was just doing it and like still not giving a shit. People there acted like it was the Armageddon. It was incredible.
You didn't touch Vince McMahon back then.
It was unbelievable.
George Groves had one of the biggest rivalries with Olympic gold medalist James DeGale. I almost forgot his name.
Yeah.
I almost forgot his name. After he lost to Truax, I almost forgot his name because he's no longer relevant.
Yes, lost to Truax. Yeah.
But
He
James
did lose to he had to have a great series.
he had a
against Miguel.
phenomenal rivalry, and it was, you got it from ground level. Before they ever came to the international scene, they already had great fights with Kenny Anderson, and it was like just a great group of prospects coming out of the UK. At
Well
the time.
seasoned.
Yeah, well seasoned.
seasoned. They knew what was up.
And-
Veterans already.
And here's the thing: they were making big money before they ever came to the US or international.
These two were a big reason last year and the year before I think especially the year before we kept talking about this British invasion, this British takeover.
Yes.
These two were enormous reasons why. And now they're finally facing off in a big, big, big fucking fight.
And Groves, he had one of the greatest title chases of all time. Think about it. So
It was Daniel Bryan-esque.
yeah, because it almost got to the point where people thought, will he ever be champion? Because he made it all the way to the title shot till he fought against Frock, and he lost the controversial first fight, and then he broke all records with the rematch. Now broken by Anthony Joshua, by the way, but at the time it was record-breaking numbers for his rematch with Froch, and then same thing happens. It wins the beginning of the fight, ends up getting stopped at the end of the fight. Then, we're like, all right, he's going to reboot. He's going to come back together.
He'll get there.
He
He's still on the
fights
level.
Badu Jack before the world knew who Badu Jack was.
I know, that was the crazy part. I remember when he lost to Badu Jack, I remember thinking, fuck, man, George Groves isn't who we thought he was. He is broken and he's on his way to being washed. No, it turns out Badu Jack's amazing. Badu Jack's really fucking good. And it was just one of these bad situations. It's almost like people who fought Mickey Gall 2
Yes.
years ago. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of situation.
And
Where
then
it's
he
just
fought
hit
Fedor
prospects.
Chutinov in a fight where people thought, hey, it's a crossroads. Is Chutinov about to become the next big thing, undefeated fighter from Russia? Or is Groves going to finally he's finally going to get his claim as world champion? And it finally happened. And now he's on top of the world. He's the real champion coming
Number
into
2 in
this
the
fight.
world.
Yeah.
Number 2 in the world. Ranked number 2 in the world. Chris Eubank, number 5 in the world. Do you want to give like a Chris Eubank little monologue like that,
Yes.
or can we just talk about him? Hey, if you want to talk about him, we
You
can
wanna talk about him?
No, we can.
Yeah,
I mean,
Chris Eubank was someone that nobody believed in. Nobody believed him. His father's one of the greatest boxers of all time. One of the greatest British fighters.
and his coach.
Yeah, and his coach. And he grew up rich. Of course, he had a lot of issues in his life. He went up for adoption for a while just because his dad was going through issues when he left boxing.
It's so Creed
Yes. He ended up getting adopted in America. And
by Felicia Rashad.
But everything came back, and he decided to go into the ring and be a fighter. He actually did it on the reality show, which Chris Eubank had, which became a big deal and brought him back into the spotlight in the UK. And no one believed in him until he fought Billy Joe Saunders, the world champion at the time, the champion, the British champion at the time.
Yeah. He was the Commonwealth champ. I think, something like that. Yeah.
And people gave him no shot.
Split decision loss. Came
decision
so
loss.
fucking close to beating that dirty gypsy. I say that not all gypsies are dirty. He just happens to be both dirty and a gypsy. And his son punches people in the dick, and I think that's very gangster.
Since then, Chris Eubank has been shooting to the moon.
That's his only loss, right? He's undefeated
This is
besides
his
that
only
fight.
loss, and he fought Nick Blackwell.
And almost killed Nick Blackwell until he had that. It really was the moment that got him over. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because there's moments that get you big, and then there's moments that get you really over.
Yes.
And his father, in between rounds, telling him, his father who killed someone in the ring one time.
Well, he severely disabled someone with brain damage.
Yeah,
he's still alive though. The guy's still alive.
Close enough. Listen, horseshoes, hand grenades, and boxing fights. Fucking close enough. He's sitting there, looking at his son on the stool, imploring him, go to the body, do something else. Don't keep going to the head. They're not going to stop the fight, and you're going to kill this kid. Trust me, you have to do something else. And he does, and he ends up picking up a TKO later. But that moment that was everywhere for a week.
It was viral, yeah.
Yeah, it was huge because it was so real and human and cinematic. I wish Carl Weathers was still alive in the Rocky universe where he could have that moment with his son. You know maybe they'll like Star Wars Force Ghost him in where he can talk to his son about don't die in this fight with the Russian guy or whatever lesson we're supposed to learn from.
And you know what? I like the fact that he's taking the role of heel in this fight.
Oh, he
Chris
is
Eubank.
cocky. He is very confident.
One of my
coming in.
favorite things that he's doing is he has the IBO title, the very illustrious IBO title, which is basically the equivalent of the North American title.
If
Like,
you're a WWF fan, he holds the European Championship.
yeah, it's a title that no American fighter would take on Showtime and be proud to have.
Yeah.
So, but he's taking it almost like the $1 million belt. Like, yeah, I'm a world champion too.
Yeah, he is exactly. It is the $1 million belt. That's it. There you go. He has the $1 million belt.
Even though nobody
The Ted
recognizes
DiBiase
that
one.
as an actual legitimate belt, you just happen to have. It was like him and Julius Ndongo are like the only named people with the
Yeah.
IBO.
But after this weekend, he could hold the WBA championship.
Yes, and that's
that would
the
be
real title.
That would be serious shit. He's number 5 in the world. George Grove's number 2 in the world. Jesse Rivas. Who do you think wins this fight?
Ooh.
I'll give my pick. Or how do you see this fight going? Or
It's crazy 'cause
when
it's
you look
really-
into this fight, what do you see?
It's really hard to kind of gauge this fight because, Eubank has looked amazing against lesser competition. I mean, we've seen George Groves push the very best to the limit.
Almost, I don't want to say entirely on heart, but it's on heart. His skill level is not as high as his results.
Yes.
He is pushing himself and rising to every occasion, but his skill level really isn't as high as his production value is. And that's not a knock. That's a great problem to have.
But he's got the confidence now that he finally got the title.
Yeah.
And he is legitimately bigger than the former middleweight and Chris Eubank. He's
But
a
size is
natural
mattering
super
less and
middleweight.
less. Size is mattering less and less.
Especially because Eubank is younger and he's growing into the frame.
Very Robert Whittaker style.
Yes, I will have to go with Eubank. I'm going to have to go with youth. I'm going to go with least damage. And I'm going to go with the fact that, it looks like it's his tournament to get over.
I agree. I think Chris Eubank is such a strong. I guess coming in, I would consider him like a 3 seed or something.
Yes.
Maybe, you know what I mean. I think this is really. I think he's going to punch his way into the finals with an upset here over George Groves, who I love. But Eubank's slick. Eubank is tough, and Eubank is going to bring it. And I don't think George Groves has the skill level to get over on it. So I think Chris Eubank Jr. picks up a real world championship
Yes.
this weekend, and I'm very happy for him.
And we go from one amazing storyline to the next amazing storyline.
Both of these could be movies. I think we've pitched these 2 movies and another movie where like 2 boxers fall in love and have to fight.
Because that happened in the women's division. There's 2 flyweights. The number one.
We should call it like mandatory challenger or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like one got signed to like Golden Boy because they were like, she's going to fight the champion for the title. She made it to the one contendership. It's like, excuse me, we're dating. This is my girlfriend. We're never going to fight.
It's like some weird NWO thing. I have no idea what to say about it. But this is an amazing storyline because we have somebody fighting. Everybody fights for their livelihood, but not everybody fights for their address. You know what I mean? Not everybody fights for their passport. Beltran this weekend's fight, we've talked about before on this podcast, he is fighting for his immigration status.
Yes.
This is wild. This is Donald Trump's America.
So the only way that he could stay in the country
This should be how
is
we
by
decide
becoming
dreamers.
world champion.
This fight should decide dreamers.
Yes.
There you
this
go.
This is Hunger Games.
It's so ridiculous.
So there's a loophole that you can stay in the country if you are an extraordinary person. So you have to excel in either athletics, medicine, or innovation.
So yeah, some kind of something. We want you.
So this is the opportunity. He's been able to stay in the country because he's punching his way into a title shot. And here he is. And I feel in a way that Linares gave up the belt on purpose because he felt bad. Because this is for the vacant belt against the number 1 contender and the number 2 contender, which is Ray Beltran, fighting for his immigration status against Paulus Moses, who is fighting for the people of Namibia. Because he is the big name there, him and Julius Ndongo, and they're kind of spearheading this whole boxing culture in Namibia, which is the smallest nation on the planet.
Is that true? I thought it was like Cote d'Ivoire was the smallest nation. Is it Namibia?
I think so.
Are we sure that nation is not just him and Ndongo? Are we certain about that?
I think there's like 40 people in the country.
Half of them are boxers. See, but that's just his fight camp. They just found a place and colonized it and called it, it's now his fight camp. So this is an amazing story. Ray Beltran kind of has his back to the wall a little bit more. I feel like it's very
Yes.
safe to say. So if you're going to judge this fight based solely off of motivation, it's got to be with Ray Beltran.
Yes.
When I look at skill level, I also do like Ray Beltran in this fight. I like Moses, but he hasn't really had the success reaching up
Yes.
that I think Beltran has had. Beltran has even when he loses, he has a good showing of himself.
Yes.
You know, so I've always been impressed with him. I think he's going to be able to walk away this weekend with the WBO championship.
Yep.
Dope.
I look forward to it. I'm also going from the only reasoning for me, and I know boxing math doesn't work, but Moses got dominated by Ricky Burns.
But skill
Beltran.
levels matter.
Yeah.
Math doesn't matter, but levels matter. When someone gets outclassed, it matters. I want to point. People are the math doesn't matter. The math doesn't matter. If I knock you out and then somebody knocks me out, that guy's gonna knock you out. It's very simple playground math.
Yes.
Maybe when it's if I beat you by split decision and you beat some other guy by split decision, who knows? That's different. But this is not that. This is levels. This is levels. Speaking of levels, Danny Swift Garcia is returning to the ring this weekend against Brandon Rios. Are we seeing a fight of people at very different levels?
Yes.
Absolutely, right?
If this fight was 5 years ago, we would be so hyped about it.
I'd be crunk.
If this happened in 2015, we'd still be happy. But I don't think Brandon Rios is in the same level that he was at that time.
Absolutely not. He is 3 or 4 years past anything resembling a meaningful fight in my eyes. Danny Swift Garcia is kind of the story coming into this weekend. He is coming off of his first loss. He's coming off of a long layoff. He took about a year off after that loss. Do you think that's a smart move after a guy who is kind of building himself up as this undefeated fighter, very safe, smart fighter? He fights Keith Thurman, the number one fighter in the world, loses, and then he takes a big, long layoff instead of getting back in there quick. Do you like that? Do you think that's good for a fighter?
I like the fact that he took the year layoff. I'm a fan of him taking the year layoff just to kind of get back in gear. I think part of that also has to do with the fact that they offered him, he was supposed to have the rematch clause with Thurman. And they said, okay, but we'll do it better for you. What we can do is have a number one contendership between you and Sean Porter. And he's like, fuck that. I'm going to take a year off, have Sean Porter have a couple of fights, and I'm going to go fight somebody else. And, once Thurman comes back, then we'll be able to go to court and see who gets the shot.
Isn't boxing wonderful? So he is going to the car wash this weekend against Danny Rios, and he is going to clean his clock. Left hook knockout or no? Does he hit his finishing move? Does he hit the Hogan leg drop?
It's really hard to stop Rios.
It is hard to stop Rios, but Rios has been taking a lot of punishment lately.
Yeah.
That catches up with you at some point.
And he's in a bigger weight class now.
He is in a bigger weight class. Do you think he knocks down Brandon Rios?
This is what my dream situation would be. If Rios beats Danny Garcia, and then we have Ortiz beat Alexander, and then they finally have the fight that they've been trying, because they've always been in different weight classes. And they've hated each other for so many years.
If they both lose this weekend, could we do like a Liddell Vanderlei thing where
I would watch that.
Oh no, they're both washed now, they better fight? Do you remember that bullshit?
Yeah.
UFC 79?
There's so many videos of them hating each other, and it's like pointless because they're not in the same weight class.
Here we go.
It's like when Chris Eubank Sr. and Prince Nassim Ahmed had beef. It was like they're in such vastly different weight classes.
Why are you guys doing this? What is the point of this? This is just wasted calories.
Yeah, you're going to make no money fight. You'll never fight each other.
Vic Ortiz is fighting this weekend against Devin Alexander, washed on wash crime. How do you feel about this fight? I mean, it is, right? What are we doing? Devin Alexander he's past his prime. Vic Ortiz is over. I mean, what are we doing?
You know what's weird is Ortiz done? Because he looks great every time he fights, but if you push his will, he will break.
He will immediately stop fighting. If the fight is not going his way, he is drunk girl on prom night. I need to get my way. You know what I mean? This is not right. This is bullshit. I asked for a blue limo.
He has such a huge fan base.
Okay.
He was in Expendables. The fight with Mayweather captivated so many people. It was one of
Was he in one of the Magic Mikes? I feel like he was in a Magic Mike. I'm not kidding. If he wasn't, he was like on set for one or something. I swear to God.
It was one of the most well done HBO 24/7s of all time, and it actually proved that Mayweather could fight anybody and sell pay-per-views. I know we talk about there was an era where you didn't need a strong B-side. That was the first pay-per-view where there wasn't a strong B-side, but just because he was fighting Mayweather, Ortiz elevated to...
Yeah, he became a strong B-side
Yes.
because we were just used to whoever is in there with Mayweather, it must be fucking amazing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It really was. I was listening to the great podcast, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, and they made a great point. If you want someone to be a headliner, or if you want someone to be a main eventer, put them in the main event. You know what I mean? Then they're a main eventer. And it really was like that with Vic Ortiz.
And Ortiz had the look. He could speak. He was young. He had an entertaining fighting style. Unfortunately, and we knew this actually when he had his first loss against Maidana, he didn't have heart. And here's the thing, because he fought Maidana, he dropped Maidana got back up. He dropped Maidana again, Maidana got back up. Maidana knocked him down, he got back up, and then he just didn't really want to fight anymore.
Yeah, he was completely done. He's like, I'm good. You got it.
And then they asked him, they're like, why did you quit? He's like, I'm a young guy. I shouldn't be hit like that.
I shouldn't be fighting. I should, people shouldn't pay to watch me fight. Can you imagine? I wish I had like a steady cam on his trainers while he was saying all this. Just like, I was just being mad pussy in there. I just really didn't want to do it tonight. His trainer's like, what the fuck did you just say? We came all the way out here. I had other things to do. Update, Vic Ortiz was not in any of the Magic Mics. Oh. I was thinking of Adam Rodriguez, actor Adam Rodriguez.
I thought you were thinking of Kevin Nash. I get those confused.
He's great in those movies. David Benavidez is fighting this weekend. He's fighting a rematch against Gavril. You excited for this fight?
Kinda.
Hasn't David Benavidez cooled in everybody's mind, I feel like?
That amazing knockout that he had of Porky Medina. Holy
cool
crap. Medina. Have you ever seen anyone land that many punches on a person at that weight class?
Yes, but it was a video game, and it was Tekken, and they did finish by ripping a guy's soul out. So, never in real life.
But Gavril is a very good fighter. He's a Mayweather Promotions fighter. Very skilled guy. This is a good fight. You think
this is a good fight? I just thought that the last fight was just... Because this is a rematch of a split decision. And Gavril, who is from Romania, I believe, he fought above his level, and I feel like David Benavidez really had an off night, and he didn't look like himself.
This is one of those fights that has to happen. Moving forward, they'll probably fight a bigger name. Both of them need a bigger A side in this fight. But in terms of just raw skill and will the fight be good, this is going to be a fantastic fight.
Do you think that David Benavidez gasses again? He gassed bad in that first fight, to the point that he got knocked down in that last round, and I think it was mostly exhaustion.
I think he overexerted himself because he wanted to look spectacular against a person who didn't have a name. I think he'll take a different approach in this fight. And plus, what is he, like 19, 20?
Yeah, he really...
he's like a kid.
21, I think.
Yeah.
He's just 21. So usually when you get rematches, the younger fighter does better, especially if they won in the first fight.
Yes.
Usually they're going to do better in the rematch, and I think that's what we're going to see here. David Benavidez, I think, is going to pick up a much clearer decision in this fight, a much more emphatic
If
decision.
it means anything, this fight's going to be on Showtime. So the last fight
You looked at me and said that like you were selling me Showtime, and that was uncomfortable. If you'd like to watch this fight show, I have some packages you should check out.
Because you got to remember, the last fight was on like... I think it was like on an FS1 card, or like it was on some channel that wasn't
ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yeah, it was on some channel that doesn't normally show boxing. So
it was on HGTV. HGTV carried the fight. It was in between Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives and Chip and Joanna Gaines.
But this time it's actually on a real boxing show. This is like when Nick Diaz
as
fought
boxing should be.
Yeah, like when Nick Diaz fought Jeremy Jackson for the rematch. It was like, yeah, they fought previously.
Oh yeah.
But now it's on the UFC.
Yeah, actually it counts now. Yeah. Oh, man, do you remember Jeremy Jackson?
He was so good.
He's still in jail for rape.
That's what happened?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Jeremy Jackson is in jail.
I was just about to say.
At least he was, or at least he got arrested. I apologize if this is allegedly, and I'm speaking out of turn. I don't believe I am. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Jackson has some serious legal trouble. And that is what ended his career. Do you want to talk about Adrien Broner for a second?
Yes.
Okay, because that's as good a segue as we're ever going to have. Adrien Broner arrested for sexual assault.
Explain to the people what happened.
Adrien Broner sexually assaulted somebody, I guess, is the long and short of it. I'm not sure what Adrien Broner, the well-known 28-year-old generational boxing talent, who has a long history of completely fucking up. He was arrested in, was it Las Vegas? Where was he arrested?
I believe so.
I believe he was arrested in Las Vegas for sexual assault. Some woman claims that he just walked up, started groping her, started trying to like spit game to her, but he would just, while he was like giving his pickup lines, his hands were also like all up on her. And you are not allowed to do that. That is assault, brother.
I mean, that's not the first assault allegation that he's had. He's also had the one where he was stalking the lady and allegedly drugged the lady, I want to say a couple years ago. So none of these have ever been proven. They've just been allegations. So
most likely this is a settle out of court situation.
Is that what you think is happening?
Most likely this is going to be a, $500,000 titty grab that he just pulled off, if I had to guess, just based off this is a uncomfortable, thing for anybody to litigate.
If these situations keep happening, when there's smoke, there's fire. But here's the thing that I will tell people. If you see Adrian Broner and you see the way he carries himself, what makes you think he's a trustworthy person?
Yeah, but I mean, you still, even then, that's not okay. You know what I mean? I don't care if you have a pit bull, your pit bull shouldn't bite people.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, moving forward, let's just not put him in the good guy category.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, please stay away from Adrian Broner. He's just proven over and over again to be a bad guy.
Yes.
Let's say it. He's a great boxer. He's not a good guy.
He's not even a good guy to himself. He's destroyed his career.
No, can you imagine how good, for any MMA fans, this is John Jones.
Yes.
We're talking about boxing's John Jones. Do you want to talk about MMA while we're here? Do you want to talk about the MMA version of boxing, which is MMA? We have a UFC card this weekend. We have, in the main event, Donald Cerrone is taking on Yancy Medeiros. Cerrone is looking to right the ship. He has 3 losses in a row. He came up to welterweight. He reeled off 4 wins in a row. Very impressive. Head kick knockouts. Looking great all the time. Then he fights homeboy Jorge Masvidal. Gets knocked out. Fights Robbie Lawler. Loses that fight. Then he fights Darren Till. Gets upset in the main event. Now he's trying to make it happen against Yancy Medeiros. My biggest question for this fight. Why is it Yancy Medeiros?
Because he had that amazing fight.
He had a very good fight, but when you look at records, there's guys higher up in this division that I think are going to be able to push Donald Cerrone more, and Yancy Medeiros still doesn't have a big enough name where he's going to move any needle. You know what I mean?
But I think what they're thinking is after the
Yancy
Oliveira
just
fight,
lost to Francisco Trinaldo, who's in the co-main event. Plug him into the main event.
But a lot of people did vote his fight against Oliveira the fight of the year.
It was a wonderful fight, I agree.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful
and
fight.
the fact that he won that fight kind of elevated him in a Forrest
I guess,
Griffin
you
kind of way.
deserve a bigger fight. After.
Yeah.
That is correct. If you have a fight of the year contender and you win it, you should get a bigger fight. I agree.
And Donald Cerrone is coming off 3 losses.
I
He's
agree, but
not
I still feel like
necessarily-
when you look at these guys who are in the co-main event, they're getting overlooked at how talented they are. Because both James Vick and Francisco Trinaldo are 8-1 in their last 9 in the UFC.
But Cerrone is 0-3 in his last.
But he's a name. That's who you give to guys who are coming up. You give a guy like Donald Cerrone, who is maybe a falling star, and you let them get some shine off of
Darren
it.
Till already did that.
Okay, then somebody else can do it. Get in line, boys. Let's all get a crack, right? I just get a little bit confused when I see fights like this, where I see guys who are higher up in the division that I feel like are getting overlooked for opportunities. What's going on with them? And then Yancy Medeiros, because he has a slugfest, gets plugged in. It's a little confusing. Hopefully they're hoping that, I guess what the UFC is thinking is, okay, he's going to fight Donald Cerrone, he's going to knock him out, he's going to get that shine, and this is a guy we know can have really exciting fights.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes an amount of sense.
Or, because he's not as talented as a Trinaldo, then we have an opportunity where Cerrone can get another win under him before we put him against another name.
Yeah, maybe. Isn't it crazy that it's really, I feel like I count out Donald Cerrone now when it comes to being a really relevant player in the division. I mean, he's dropped 3 in a row. I don't think he's ever going to be one of those top 5 guys again. Call me a hater, call me somebody who doesn't believe, but prove me wrong. We did talk about the main
30 is not the new 20.
Do you think he's going to win this fight, Donald Cerrone or Yancy Medeiros?
I think Medeiros has this fight.
I think Medeiros is also going to win. James Vick versus Francisco Trinaldo.
I'm super excited about this.
I'm pretty excited for this fight. This is a great fight.
Yeah.
These are both guys that I feel like get overlooked all the time. I'm not really a fan of James Vick's camp. In fact, I'm actively not a fan of James Vick's camp, Team Lloyd Irvin, who have a long history of rapes. And Francisco Trinaldo, who I have been very impressed with, for no reason got amazing at MMA at like age 45. And he looks 65. But he is so strong. He's an amazing grappler. His striking has really rounded out. And he's a serious contender.
You know, we're both stand-up comedians. I think Trinaldo basically is the MMA version of that really funny comedian who doesn't want to move to LA or New York.
Can I give a name without insulting someone?
Yes.
Haywood Turnipseed.
Yeah.
Haywood Turnipseed, one of the best comedians in the DMV. If he were, to try to go to New York or LA, I'm sure he would crush it. But he's also very happy here, by all accounts, by all appearances. And so he's not traveling outside of that. Anybody out there should look up Haywood Turnipseed, great guy.
But Francisco Trinaldo, if he had left younger, he would have achieved that same level of success just at an earlier age.
Do you think he's just always looked super old? because he looks so fucking old all the time. How do you see this fight going? I feel like James Vick is one of the strongest guys in this division, and I think there's a fight where, for the first time, Trinaldo might not have the strength advantage that he's used to.
I think Vick has this fight. I think this is a get Vick over fight.
It very well may be. I'm still going to go with Trinaldo. I think that his well-rounded skill set is going to really pay off in this division.
I think this was made as a test. This was like, all right, let's see how good James Vick is. He's been getting these good wins.
And stopping everybody. Most of these wins for both guys are by stoppage.
If he wins this fight, then he's a somebody.
I'm looking forward to it. We have one fight left to recap. That is from Bellator, a quarterfinal in the heavyweight Grand Prix to determine the heavyweight champion of Bellator. Matt MItrione is taking on Big Country Roy Nelson. This is a rematch from years ago when they were both in the UFC. They were both on the Ultimate Fighter 10 together, but a lot has changed since then. Roy Nelson has been, taken out to the car wash many times over by now. He's a shadow of who he used to be in terms of his standing. Matt MItrione is maybe not as good as he, I think he's probably already peaked, but he's not far from his peak. He's not far from the highest he's ever been. And he's coming off a big knockout win over Fedor Emelianenko.
Doesn't love Big Country. It's the greatest marketing job ever. He's Kung Fu Panda. He makes everyone believe that they could do it too.
He is somebody who got over by being eccentric. You know what I mean? He wasn't cool. He wasn't normal.
He looks like Zach Galifianakis.
He's a crazy person, but I feel like he has, because of that, I feel like there was so much expectation on him to be in these crazy fights and do all this crazy stuff that he just doesn't have it anymore. And how long before his chin just completely is gone and he doesn't even have a career anymore?
Well, he's become Mick Foley.
He is. That's it. He's Mick Foley. Oh my God, you're so right.
People love him now because of how much punishment he takes as opposed to him winning
So
fights.
He has to keep taking more and more punishment. I think this is an awful fight for Roy Nelson. If I was somebody in the heavyweight Grand Prix for Bellator, Roy Nelson is the one guy I would have been like, please let me in the first round get Roy Nelson. Let me fight Roy, because it's, I think, the easiest fight. Roy has a grappling base. It's a good grappling base. He's a black belt. But I don't think he's going to be able to get this fight to the ground. And standing, he just has a big right hand that when you're a heavyweight, that's the first thing you learn is how to avoid. And it doesn't come fast anymore. It used to come fast from the hip with a lot of power. Now it's a lot slower. It's a lot more telegraphed. It's not set up with any other punches. I think MItrione is going to walk through this fight.
I do too.
He's going to dance all night on him. Then he's going to say something really problematic, and we're going to have to come on here and talk about why Matt MItrione needs to wash his mouth out with some of his mother's soap. Do you have anything else for the weekend, Jesse?
Nothing else for the weekend.
Put yourself over.
Follow me on social media, J Rivas Comedy on Instagram and on Twitter, Jesse Rivas on Facebook. Actually, if you are in the DC area, come see me at Cuba Cuba on March 3rd. I will be hosting for Doc Comedy's reunion show. It's going to be fantastic. So what we're going to do is the production team is going to bring in some of the best comedians in the DMV from different skill levels. So we have the new up-and-comer, we have the headliner who's been kicking ass and making news lines, and we have some great features that are going to come in, and it's going to be a great show. There's Cuban food, $10 to get in, and there's also going to be salsa dancing afterwards.
That's going to be fucking dope. I can't wait for that. Make sure you follow the show on any social media account. You can look for me at BadTweetist on Twitter, Joseph M. Gilpin on Instagram. We will be back next week breaking down all the most important fights in the DMV area. I can't wait for it. Mr. Jesse Rivas, Mr. Joe Gilpin. We'll see all you guys next week here on The Block.
Peace.